Welcome to the Navic Gaming Podcast, where it is our mission to explore the business and future of video games. We bring together the industry's brightest builders, investors, and thinkers to keep a pulse on current events, dissect emerging trends in games, share lessons learned, and have a great time. This podcast is also part of Navic's growing ecosystem, which ranges from free and premium research to consulting and advisory services. For more information, visit www.navic.co. This episode is brought to you by Coda Payments. Game developers building their free-to-play monetization strategy have a daunting task when considering security, payment methods, user experience, and global expansion. I'm here today with Neil Davidson, Executive Chairman at Coda Payments. Neil, how has Coda Payments helped games teams drive greater success?
We like to say we help mobile game developers think outside the app when it comes to monetization. That's because outside the app, they can collect payments from their players at half the cost or less of doing so through the app stores. Coda Shop is our global marketplace for game currency and in-game items, trusted by tens of millions of gamers around the world. And developers that want to accept payments outside the app on their own websites can use Coda Pay, which allows them to support hundreds of local payment methods globally with a single integration. Whether our partner leverages Coda Pay, Coda Shop, or any of our other solutions, we offer local market insights, provide live local language customer support, ensure tax compliance, and manage fraud risks. If your listeners are interested in retaining more of the revenue they generate, I hope they'll get in touch with us at Coda.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Neil. And if you, our listener, are interested in learning more about how Coda Payments solutions can take your game to the next level, head to codapayments.com or check out the details in the show notes. And with that, let's dive into the weekly roundtable.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Navic Roundtable. I'm your host, Devin Becker, and with me, as always, some great panelists, Aaron and Felipe here. How are you guys doing today?
Fantastic. Happy to be here.
Yeah,
cool. Felipe, great. I hear you doing some hiring.
Yeah. We have opened some positions, so we are looking specifically for a lead game designer, a senior game artist to join our studio that is in early stages. So these roles will be part of the core team. We are focusing on hybrid casual games, puzzle games with this setup or mentality, I would say. So looking forward to seeing applications, because we are really doing fun stuff, and I think it's going to be something that everybody could enjoy. So I want people to join in this venture with me.
And just a quick question: is that remote or on site?
We are working hybrid from Barcelona in Spain.
Cool, awesome. Well, where can people go find out more information about that?
Yeah, I think we have posted the jobs in the Navic newsletter, so they can find
it. Well, hopefully everyone listening subscribed and they get that. And you can see, I believe it's at the end of the digest usually.
Yeah, every issue got our cool. Job board.
Awesome. Well, so make sure to check that out and see. Just out of curiosity, if nothing else, right? Cool. Well, hopefully you get those filled quickly, and some good talent out there, especially with unfortunately the amount of layoffs we've seen lately. Definitely might be some good ones to scoop up potentially.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But on to other news. We have quite a few news topics today and some interesting stuff. Monster Hunter Now came out from Niantic, so we're going to cover how that launch has gone. Luda managed to raise some money for AI stuff, so that's still happening. Esports, not in a great place at the moment. We're going to cover a little bit of that. And Counter-Strike 2, though, did manage to launch and kind of forced its way into everyone's Steam accounts, pretty much. So, yeah, cool. Why don't we just get started on how Monster Hunter Now did?
Yeah, so I can kickstart this one. And really, what I really want to do is just highlight a piece that Moni wrote for Navic Digest a few days ago about Monster Hunter Now and its launch. And of course, our partners at Data.ai were super helpful for capturing all of that data here. So props to them for enabling us to do this well. But really, in short, Monster Hunter Now, which is Niantic's latest title, as of the beginning of the month, is now Niantic's fourth largest title after just 2 weeks on the market. And as of a couple of days ago, it had officially grossed $15 million, which will surpass Pikmin Bloom's $20 million in no time. So it's a pretty for Niantic specifically, it's a pretty great start and something this kind of success they haven't seen in a while. And this is notable partially because we've been critical of Niantic the past few times we've talked about Niantic on the podcast. It's been more with a skeptical eye, or more just, being saddened by, some of the games that were either getting canceled or came out and didn't do well because it wasn't a great fit for a location-based, AR-based type of experience. But with Monster Hunter now, they're doing a lot better. And so what Manu did in his piece really well was just kind of laying out, why this game succeeded when so many others failed. And for one, similar to Pokemon Go, there's a strong genre IP fit here. Players roam around various destinations and fight monsters. So a location-based element works more here than in other IPs. And then second, the focus on Japan really seems to be working out. Monster Hunter is obviously very popular in Japan, and the development team here on the Now game was wise in designing aspects of the game like avatar selection for that audience. They also had a super popular showing at the Tokyo Game Show, and now 70% of Monster Hunter Now's revenue comes from Japan. So they unlocked that market really effectively. And lastly, the game just stays pretty authentic to Monster Hunter. Manu kind of framed Monster Hunter Now as a Diet Coke to Monster Hunter's Coke, and it kind of makes sense. Even though there's monsters, there's a storyline, there's an RPG element. And even though the RPG element and intensity is rather light to serve a broader mobile audience, it might not be the best fit for all the hardcore Monster Hunter fans, but it still is, intriguing a bunch of them, and it's widening the funnel for who could be interested in Monster Hunter. So it's a win so far. Obviously, it's still very early. We have to see what retention looks like, what their live ops are going to look like. But it's definitely a win for Niantic. And so I think it's worth calling out and celebrating. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say they have their mojo back, and their next game launches from here are going to all be just as successful. But it's a big deal for them to have a successful game, and not just for the game's sake, but also because games have been the funding mechanism and part of Niantic's broader AR mapping vision, which is really interesting, but naturally just takes a lot of time to play out because we're not all walking around with AR glasses yet. So they're biding their time for AR to really have its moment, and the games are a good bridge to that. So thought that was a really compelling story of the past couple weeks, and excited to see them doing well.
Yeah, a couple thoughts on that. I'm kind of curious. So, a lot of the IP of most of their games has been Japanese based, right? With Pokemon, even Pikmin, but then you've seen ones like NBA that's not really obviously Japanese focused. Obviously a couple of those did well, a couple of those did poorly. We did call out that it was likely Monster Hunter was the one that had the most chance to be a success because it was a good fit. And I'm glad to see that panned out, right? So that does, I think, give Niantic at least an understanding of hey, maybe we need to make sure this is a good fit before we try and just do this licensed property and then lose it because it doesn't work. So it's interesting to see that. But I do wonder also, though, you mentioned the Japan focus, if Japan's geography makes a difference, right? So it's a very small territory. They're used to kind of actually taking advantage of that with, for example, they'll have the Nintendo Switch games that would have the ability to play with other people nearby that they've done back in the DS games. So they could take advantage of kind of being this sort of more crowded, but only slightly spread out island, and that sort of close proximity. Whereas, the US, for example, is very spread out, where it's the coasts have a lot of population, but then the middle can be pretty sparse. And I do wonder if any of that factors in to these location-based games working or not working in terms of the social aspects, or the battling over territory kind of aspects like you have with Pokemon gyms. And this one also didn't seem to, at least when I played through a little bit of it, didn't seem to have much of the AR aspect, or at least didn't try and default to it. It was definitely focused on the location-based aspect instead.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have any thoughts on any of
that. Not too much. I mean, I think it's just a really popular IP in Japan, and it lends itself to location-based gameplay better. And it seems like Niantic has just learned some lessons from the past. So kind of the trifecta of that enables it to stand out more than not. I think you're right that these kinds of games do better in more urban areas where there's just more people with more places to go and battle over or explore. That makes a lot of sense. But obviously there are a lot of cities worldwide, so it's not just about that. But Japan also, they are a high spending country on games too. So if you're gonna double click into any region, that's not a bad one to make your bet on.
Yeah, I think it also makes sense to now thinking about it that both Pokemon and Monster Hunter are kind of like open world style games, whereas like obviously the NBA is not an open world style game, right? Because it's just basketball court. And then Pikmin Bloom was never really, to my understanding, much of an open world kind of game. It was more kind of level based. So maybe that's also like an important thing because in the sense of the location based like thing mapping correctly to the game's central sort of sense of like exploration and the way content is like provided to you. Like Pokemon, for example, you had a tendency in that game to kind of wander around and find encounters, and obviously that made sense. Same thing with Monster Hunter, whereas the other IPs they've done maybe don't have that so much, and so that might be something as well to look out for in future Niantic titles. Like, hey, how much of a match is there with even the location-based aspect to the original IP that they're going with it? Because there's like, I believe a Marvel one still slated as well, if I remember correctly.
I think so. I'm not super bullish on that for the location based reasons, but yeah.
I guess we'll see, right? Like how future IP does, because it's Niantic seems to also be kind of a technology company in a lot of ways, and kind of pushing their Lightship SDK and stuff like that. And I don't know how much like they've actually been able to get people to use that for the most part, because obviously they need to kind of have successful demonstrations, I think, for people to pick that up. So I guess we'll look and see. Like maybe this will actually be a big thing for Niantic to kind of get some more people interested in using this, just hopefully with good fits. But we'll find out. I don't know about the Marvel one, like you said, not super bullish on that, but we did have some fundraising though coming in. Like there's still trickles of it, maybe more in the single digit millions, but Luda managed to pick up some money for their AI training game sim.
Yeah, exactly. So more raise of an AI company. In this case, Luda is an AI company that allows anyone to craft AI agents with like Lego-like building blocks. Like they claim to do this like quite easy for like, so anybody can do that, and kind of like introducing a new category of social experiences where like you have a kind of playground and you can create your agent and like see that interacting with the world, but also interacting with other agents. So they have raised 7 millions to support its work, leading by Bitcraft Ventures and Compound. And they were presenting like a new system called real-time reinforcement learning that allows users to make these AI creations interact with the real world, like without any lag, and without having to code or animate them in order to perform the actions. And the company believes, and also the investors like have a stress that they part of the reason that they have invested there is because they consider that these agents are ideal for UGC gameplay, and as any user can create them, and like this could create like a new way of interacting and playing. So like a new category, let's say, of games. So well, interesting to see what they come out with. They haven't like released so much, just a few videos like showcase what like very simple how the thing could be, but like not much detail on that. So well, more companies raising from AI. So I think like it's definitely the hot topic now. And they were saying that they've been like working on this stuff for quite long. So there were people like working already at Google 5 years ago on like this type of technology to enable what they are showing today. So what are your thoughts on more AI companies racing? I think
Well,
like this is a different type of AI too, right?
yeah, I was just gonna ask, by AI agent, like what exactly does that mean in practice? Is it like an NPC? Is it something else? Like what do you think like the end result product
Yeah,
wise is really gonna look like?
it's kind of a like, I would say like it's kind of a character that you can like create like I think like very basically you can define like the shape and then like the agent understands the shape in the sense like, do I have wheels? Then I'm rolling over the floor, or do I have legs and I can like step and jump and like do other stuff? And then they interact with the 3D world, so they can like in the video there is a basketball ball, and the tiny avatar like runs into the basketball ball and like kind of stumble into it. So this is what I think like they are referring to agents. So I am understanding that you could create like several agents and they can cooperate, or they can like interact with each other, but also like each of us could be joining and creating our own agent, and then like this is kind of your representation of yourself in this world. So that's why they are maybe stressing about the social part of the social component on this. Maybe also if you could like, I don't know, create different environments, then that's about like what is the UGC component, so you can create like an environment and different type of characters that interact with each other, and being something that is like even just pleasant to watch, right? It's not interactive, but it's pleasant to see what's the reaction, what's happening.
Gotcha. I mean, I don't really know what to make of Luda specifically. I guess we'll see what they come up with, and how it works when it's all live. I mean, I think I like the idea of pointing AI towards like user generated content. Like, I feel like there's a ton of opportunity to unlock there. I mean, user generated content. It's been all about democratizing creation in some kind of way, and AI tooling is an accelerant of doing that. And so it kind of, opens the floodgates further for people to be able to create all sorts of interesting and wacky things. Most of it's probably not going to be interesting, but if it, exponentially and it enables people to create much more, then a larger amount is going to be really interesting to come out. So I
Mhm.
think that this framing is kind of compelling, and it's in contrast to what we've seen with other companies like InWorld AI, which I did an interview with them a while ago, and of course they're focused more on like serving like big studios and publishers and that kind of thing, and integrating their more AI NPCs into big open world types of games. One question that I did ask them that I have been thinking about, and I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts on this, is especially like the NPC part. Is this a disruptive innovation or is it a sustaining innovation? Meaning that if it's a sustaining innovation, does it just make everything that's going on better and you get more better of kind of the same thing? Or does it actually like create something new, like new genres, new types of game experiences, etc. And I haven't been able to get a great answer to that question yet. And maybe it's a mix of both, but either way, I'm not completely sold. So I'm curious where you guys fall on how AI falls in that disruptive, sustaining innovation continuum.
Yeah, I think like I agree that it could be both. And I think like for me, I see that more as a tool, and then you can use the tool for just like slightly improvement and quality of life improvement and what we already have, or it could be really a game changer. And it depends on how well you leverage on the things that this tool can offer to really build like completely different immersive experiences. But this is still, I would say, early days. So I feel like this is something that we could imagine happening in the long term, but it's still like a lot of technology and adoption, right? To get there, I feel like all this area is moving very fast, and we see like new tools, new applications day to day. But we need to keep up with that speed, right? In order to be able to generate and leverage on that, like to create experiences that really are up to the capabilities of the technology, and that will take time.
Yeah, I think it's fun. It's funny when you think about it with NPCs, like looking at what NPCs generally do in most games, right? They're either there to deliver like text lore, pretty much, like pieces of like world content, or quest givers, primarily, right? They either are a fiction generator or they're something that's there to facilitate gameplay in some way. I don't know if this changes much in terms of the quest giver side of things, but in terms of like the world fiction kind of things, the ability to be a little more responsive, I think, is the interesting part here. So where there's like a little bit more room for customization. Like it makes me think back to even going back to like the old Nintendo, Super Nintendo RPGs where you put it in your name and then like the characters would use your name in the sentences, right? Like that was kind of like the early sort of responsiveness to something that the user did, but obviously very canned, kind of Mad Lib, fill in the blank style. This technology, I've seen a couple companies starting to integrate this sort of thing to allow the game itself to customize content a little bit more. Even Ubisoft's use of the Bark stuff, that if you remember that they were talking about that a while back, I think at GDC, where they were using it to help write Barks, which are, for those who aren't aware, like the kind of call outs the NPCs, especially enemies, will do, where they just kind of shout stuff to stop it from being kind of repetitive to extent, like, because generating a lot of that is kind of problematic. And so I think in some areas like that where content either needs to be like kind of trying to avoid that sort of repetitiousness that happens a lot with NPC dialogue, or just to customize it to people, to customize it either to like stuff that they've like stuff how they have in their inventory, stuff that they've done, party members. Like there's lots of little things that can be tweaked to that player, and even like their name. And so I think that stuff is like the obvious use case where it starts to just be reactive in like a very controlled way, right? Where it's like just one step above procedural content, basically. And I think that's probably the safest bet, is to like go, hey, procedural plus, really, like procedural, but where we don't have to predefine everything and write all these algorithms. We could have some stuff that's like on rails, like respond gameplay mechanic wise. That's where I don't know that there's like necessarily a way you could do this, unless it's the type of game that is okay with being a little chaotic, right? Where it's okay that like this doesn't help progression, that things might go totally off the rails. I mean, we've seen a lot of bad AI in games and how sort of like game breaking it could be, how disruptive it could be. Obviously, when that's AI generated and like not even necessarily pre-programmed, that's much more likely to happen, I would think. So that, I think that area will be, if they're trying to do that with these kind of games, that could be really pretty problematic. And the thing that kind of like screams potential problem out to me from the Luda race is the idea of real-time reinforcement learning. So most of these things haven't had like real-time learning. They're just like using content and then generating content off of that, but it's not like learning anything new, right? Like you're not adjusting the AI's models in any way. Like no new learning is actually happening. It's just kind of, read only. And so if they're actually talking about like modifying the game based off of stuff players do, that's where it starts to get really iffy in terms of like people really messing with it doing really unexpected or potentially offensive things. Like the guardrails have to get a lot better with that sort of stuff. And like we can't even do content moderation properly for kids. So that seems like dangerous territory. But again, that's just a word they're using. And like you said, they haven't really detailed a ton of it yet. So let's kind of wait and see on that. But anytime they're talking about real-time learning, I start to think back to that, Microsoft bot on Twitter that got turned into Hitler in about a day. It just becomes very problematic. So I do hope to see these things, though, even if it's baby steps, because I think content like can get boring very fast. And like that's a big problem for players. Like that's why, roguelikes are cool, for example, right? Because they procedurally generating new content, but like that doesn't work with a lot of other game genres. And this offers at least some flexibility for some areas of that. So I'm hopeful, but I am also pretty skeptical of raises like this towards stuff that's very like lingo driven, where they're like coining a phrase and trying to sound smart. But I know Bitcraft is pretty heavily into like a lot of AI stuff, and so in games, and I'm not surprised to see them leading this. But I do think they do a pretty good job like looking over stuff. So I have a little bit of faith in that aspect, I guess. I don't know, just really curious to see how this goes, because we are probably going to see these kind of AI raises for a while, right? If there's still money to deploy in games and Web3 is not it, and there's not like anything else really kind of popping off, like you got to pick something that's like a potential for a huge disruptive technology if you want to 100x that, right?
Yeah, and I agree with that, with Aaron. I think like I've seen like many companies working on AI, focusing on like creating a product for another company to be able to like produce, in our case, games faster, better, whatever, but not so much focusing on the end customer. So I feel like more and more we are going to see more companies focusing on this, on like serving the customer, not the companies, to be able to leverage on AI to like create their own experiences or like enjoy experiences better.
Yeah, my last thought on this, and part of why I was asking the disruptive versus sustaining innovation question is just because even like as like an investor, like how do you view this market and what you should fund? If you think it much of this is going to be a sustaining innovation, sure, maybe you can create some tools that will be sold to companies sort of SaaS like or whatever, and you can have small tuck-in acquisition exits or something. But if it's sustaining, there's not really a big platform shift. There's not really like a big transformation in the way things are made. It's a tuck-in technology, and so like where does a new industry defining companies come from if it's sustaining? If it's disruptive, like what is the disruption going to be? Is it going to be some new type of genre or gameplay that we haven't seen before that gets unlocked? If so, who really wins? Probably more like the game company in that case, or someone who can like pair like creating the end product with technology, maybe not like the middleware in between. And so I've just been sort of I'm not privy to all of the conversations that all of these venture capitalists are having with all these companies to see what's coming down the pipeline. So I'm definitely blind to a lot, but I've just struggled to answer that question in terms of like, okay, where is like the next really big idea that facilitates some type of like tectonic shift that's going to be that next like multi-billion-dollar company? And not sure I've seen it yet.
Yeah, I think this could go a little bit into like how Westworld is, right? Like the series. So like really like being in a world where like you're like surrounded by NPCs that really behave like humans. So it's not like I need to go into this world and either play with NPCs like Devin was saying, like are like programmed to behave like this, and this like the cases that would happen and like what is not there won't happen, or I need to wait for having like other people being there and really interacting like human beings, right? Like there could be like worlds where you have both things happening at the same time, like and not needing anyone else. So I think that could be disruptive, different type of entertainment.
But that's not an AI company. That's still it still is more like who's making the thing. And maybe it's vertically integrated, but like that's what I haven't been able to wrap my head around. Anyways, we should move on to other topics, Devin.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I just was one last thing. It just keeps me think of when we're talking about user created content or user generated content, to use the specific acronym, I guess. And trying to make that easier through AI, it makes me think of Spore a lot for like what that tried to do with like democratizing like sort of the 3D modeling aspect of like the creatures and things like that. Like tried to do a lot of that, and I'm like, I wish Will Wright was doing some of this stuff with the AI. I'd love to see what he'd pull out of it, but I think he's still kind of stuck in his Web3 project at the moment, so we'll see how that goes. But I would like to see it applied to that. And we also have to keep in mind the only two real proof of concepts of this AI advancement stuff that we've seen is like the language stuff and the art stuff. We really haven't seen like a lot outside of that proves like AI has really made those big leaps forward. So I think outside of those two areas, like it's good to be skeptical until we see some good outside proof on that. But speaking of the audience interacting with games and influencing them, esports has been in a kind of an interesting place as of lately. We've talked about it, I think, a few times, but there's been some big shifts as well. Probably the biggest one here with the OWL, which is Overwatch's league, just kind of imploding a little bit, like basically getting shut down for the moment to kind of rethink it.
I was going to say a lot of bit.
Yeah, a little bit, right. Well, because they say they're going to like relaunch it, right? Like this is just kind of rethink it, but this could just be like the end of it, right? Realistically, it was always kind of a forced league. Let's be honest. It was kind of like esports is built off marketing budgets, right? It's a big advertisement for this is a competitive game and we're going to try and create, brand around it and all that stuff. But like, it never really it was kind of a casual game to be forcing competitive on. And then like they tried different ways of doing it and they were all like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like they were all kind of forced. And so this is maybe kind of an inevitable thing here that was going to happen sooner or later with it. And then I feel like a lot of esports seem to be kind of going this direction where just maybe they're not as sustainable long term as we were hoping. Like, even like my own bias, kind of watching what's happening with Rainbow Six Siege, which was kind of one of the unexpected esports. It's been running for quite a while, but I'm kind of also seeing that trending downhill a bit, running into a lot of problems. I don't know what the budget's like for it anymore, but obviously I mentioned before that game is one of the few hits Ubisoft has had consistently providing earnings pretty much year over year. Like, helping keep that company alive. And the esports, while it probably isn't the big driver, that is definitely a contributor to some extent. So I'm kind of curious whether or not, like, for example, Overwatch, the Overwatch League is actually contributing to the bottom line, because this is happening, keep in mind, in the middle of like trying to transition over to Microsoft, right? Where they want to, like, they wanted to make a good impression, but they kind of waited till the deal was inked and passed all the tests and everything to kind of be like, okay, now we can shut this down, right? Because I'm sure they wanted to look attractive to Microsoft as part of this deal. And, Diablo 4 is part of that as well, where now it's kind of like down like 99% of its player base. But it looked great at the time, during this acquisition that's taken forever. So it's just one of those trends. And I think the one to watch for me with these is what happens with Riot's games, right? Obviously the big one, League of Legends, but they also have other ones like Valorant that they've been trying to launch. So I think that's the thing to watch, is whether or not Riot can even sort of sustain its esports ecosystem, because it's been one of the big spenders in that category, fighting for things like, good pay for players, all those sorts of things that cost a lot of money, try to run those. And I think even Dota is just kind of coasting from Valve and stuff like that. So I don't know, you guys, any thoughts on esports in general is kind of falling apart here?
Sure, I can start. My take is simple. If something is not sustainable, it won't sustain. And so we've been going through a reset of things that aren't sustainable, and that makes sense. And it's going to continue to go down that path unless sustainable models are put in place. And I've been preparing for an interview that I'll publish next week with the co-CEOs of ESL Faceit Group, which will be really interesting. I'm looking forward to it. But in preparation, I was looking back at a couple of previous interviews that we did this year with other leaders in the esports space. One with Nicole LaPointe Jameson, who was CEO of Evil Geniuses, and more recently, John Robinson, who's president and COO of 100 Thieves. And in both of those interviews, we asked them, if you could change one thing in the world of esports to make your lives easier, what would it be? Nicole's answer was media rights, which has still sort of been a mess and around all of these games and not standardized in any kind of way. And then John Robinson, his answer was just pointing out the fact that, well, the structure doesn't really work. And so, like, if you want to, come up with a more sustainable structure, you need to like get everyone's incentives aligned. And currently, the publishers have different incentives from esports organizations and like others in the esports space, because they view it more as marketing. They're not actually trying to profit off of esports itself and make it be a sustainable business on its own right. And so he actually did compliment some of what like ESL was doing with CSGO in terms of like they're running CSGO tournaments, but they don't own CSGO, but they still have to find a sustainable way for them to sustain a business and for everyone else to sustain a business with them. So if you change the structure, you change the incentives. And so I think that's directionally right. And I'm curious what the ESL Faceit guys will say about that too. But in my view, like, I think it's just a structure reset that's needed. That clearly what has been going on hasn't really been working, but maybe under a new structure with more aligned incentives and just more thought put into like cost, will come out better on the other side. But it's definitely esports winter for now.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it's been difficult to really kind of even find continuous viewership and profit from that viewership and stuff like that. It's definitely not the same as, like, you're not seeing people pay for pay-per-view like you would with traditional sports. You're not seeing people go to the physical events at the same like level that you would, but also like we're in kind of a weird global environment where these games are not necessarily like localized, like say the NFL is, or a lot of these other physical sports that tend to depend on physical location outside of something like World Cup or Olympics or some of these other ones that are a little more global. And so we have this kind of weird thing, like Overwatch tried to do this sort of like local teams based off cities, but then the players were like never from those. So you had some really weird mismatches of attempts to try and match traditional sports and esports, like franchise models and all these other things where like we went through a lot of iterations to try and figure it out. And like you said, maybe now it's just we kind of got a clean house and reset it a bit. But one area that I found interesting that I've seen, talking to people at PlayStation and things like that around their sort of like esports scenes, is the idea of like, at least in the US, one thing that does seem to work kind of well at least at a very small level, rather than like the hugely televised, arena level, is as sports games. Running like FIFA, Madden, those kind of things at like more local grassroots level, smaller tournaments, not trying to make it this big televised thing, which is ironic because they're just digital versions of those physical sports. So like technically they're imitating it far more than the esports are, and in a way that like the incentives are weirdly like aligned, right? You still have the publisher who's involved, but it's also mimicking a real sport, probably with licenses outside of EA's recent FC game, which is in a weird place with that. So we'll see how that one does. But it's kind of going back to the old school esports, which was like more grassroots tournaments, local tournaments. People just playing it because they like the game, they understand the game. Everyone knows how to watch those. You don't have the issue of like with a lot of these games. As a new viewer to esports, you have to go through this sort of period where either you already understand the game really well or you have to learn it when you watch it. Regular sports, not as hard, and most people kind of know them to an extent. So you go to watch, let's say they were, to televise a local tournament of, FIFA or Madden or whatever, you get it, right? You'd be like, I know this sport, I can tell what's going on. The commentators don't have to do as much of that lift. So it's kind of interesting to see that. And I don't know if that will really grow above that level, but there is at least some level of esports that like makes a little more sense, I think. And those obviously have a franchise model to keep going for the financials of that, right? So it's not necessarily advertising in the sense of like, let's try and sell DLC or in-app purchases. Let's try and keep this game extend its lifetime as a game as a service. Instead, they have the annual model. So it's a very different business model around the game as well. So that was interesting. Like, just some different things that are kind of working. I don't see those being necessarily adopted by the bigger games. Like the kind of games as a service competitive games, but I think maybe we do need to figure out a better model. But at least Valve seems to be doing okay with this kind of hands-off approach, as you mentioned. Just kind of be like, hey, tournament organizers can run what they want. The publisher isn't necessarily trying to run it the same way, and maybe that is like what we go back to, where it's just like, hey, you guys do kind of what you like. Here's some rules. Follow these rules. Do these things yourself. Just don't tarnish the game. And run it as a tournament, like with your own profit model, with your own sponsors, with your own, like, rather than making that a marketing vehicle for the game so much. I mean, it's done quite well for Counter-Strike. And speaking of which, Counter-Strike 2 got it was beta for a while and kind of got really kicked out there, maybe a little too aggressively it mentioned the idea that it was also, the original was delisted. So you want to crack into that, Felipe?
Yeah, you're right. So I commented on this news a few months ago when Valve announced that they were going to launch Counter-Strike 2. So they released it like a few days ago, and as you said, like it has been felt a bit like of a rush. I was hearing some jokes about Rush B, like terrorists do in Counter-Strike. So kind of like the approach that they've taken it. So let's recap the summary of major changes that they have added in Counter-Strike 2 compared to Global Offensive. So they are using a new game engine. Counter-Strike 2 is using Source 2 game engine, which is a significant upgrade from the Source engine. Results in improved graphics, performance, and physics. They have updated the maps, so several of the classic Counter-Strike maps have been updated for Counter-Strike 2, and these updates include like new visual effects, improved level design, and bug fixes. One of the major improvements is the subtick system. So Counter-Strike 2 features a new subtick system that allows for more precise hit detection and collision detection. So basically, you have like the actions that the players are taking, like being synchronized with the server much more frequently. So this enables to be more precise on what actually happened in the gameplay and who killed who first. And resolve this more properly. So players are really satisfied with this improvement. And the latest one, probably the most visual one, is the responsive smokes. So now smokes in Counter-Strike 2 react more realistically to the environment and the player movement. And also, like now you can shoot through smoke and then create a hole where you can see through it. So kind of like changing the way of interacting with the smoke as we know from the past. And as you said, it's been a replacement of CSGO. So I guess that people involved, they didn't want to like split their user base between the players going for the previous, because they want still like to keep what they had or the status or whatever. They migrated everybody to the new one. Indeed, there were complaints because like this wasn't really properly announced, and there were tournaments that were being held on CS:GO, and then suddenly you couldn't play any longer. So they needed to decide like what to do, like what to try to go to some pirate servers and finish the tournament, or like move into CS2. Uh, there are also been complaints because like there are some content being lost as of now, at least like as some game modes that haven't been created in CS2 yet, and also community created maps that are not available yet. It's also not working on Mac. I saw some jokes about it, like it's a bad news for the two players of Mac of Counter Strike, but well, still like it's something that some places still there. I guess that if they did the move without having Mac version ready, is because like it's not going to create a big impact anyway. But this is more on the complaints. That there are still like things that it felt that it was rushed, like it wasn't really finished, and probably people questioning why they did the move. If like the global offensive was working really well still, and they could have waited a little bit more to finish this and properly launch it. But on the other hand, the response has been really, really good. So more than 1.5 million concurrent players were playing, I think, on the first day, on the first couple of days. That was massive. So to give an understanding of the scale of this, like among the top 10 games with concurrent players, like Counter Strike 2 had more than the other 9 together. So it was really, really massive. I heard also some unconfirmed like data that they made like 40 million in opening loot boxes in the first 40 minutes. So it's like a million per minute.
That's
Amazing.
insane.
It's insane. Really insane.
Was there new content or something for people to be opening that, or were people just like that excited?
I think there was new content. So they had like migrated all the content that they had before, so the skins, the weapons, and everything. People were preserving this when migrating to the new game, but I guess that they were having like new stuff with these loot boxes, and I guess that what was creating this craziness.
Yeah, I don't have that many thoughts on like CS2 in general, other than like, yeah, I mean, it seems like a transition that's going relatively smoothly. They're like leveling up the look and feel of the game for, just future proofing it a bit more. But man, the case openings part of that of your notes, Felipe, is like just what leaped out to me. And so I was Googling a bit, and I was seeing that earlier this year it was reported that um, Valve makes about like $54 million a month on average just from like these case openings. And it's probably gone up since then, because I was also seeing that there was like a 1 month where players spent over 100 million on these cases. So like in general, like this is probably one of like the best like gaming businesses out there, just CS:GO cases. Like that's just insane. And still, like everyone knows CS:GO is big, but like that still is like pretty underrated, if you ask me. But
Is that money
even though
from
that's
keys
under,
or like transactions on it? Just to be clear, like how are they making that money on the cases?
I don't know. I can go figure that out. I think it's like cases being opened. Like
So like the keys,
I think so.
potentially? Okay.
Yeah.
Because then there would just be also the market fees on top of that, which would be even higher.
Yeah, which is like the other piece of that. Like that was just like the case openings, but then there's the marketplace that builds on top of that. So it's like very an underrated business. But yeah, Felipe, what you were saying about like making however many millions and however many minutes, like that's like next level insane. So obviously that's not sustainable, but it really just shows that CS:GO players, they're into these freaking cases. So good on Valve for figuring this out. There's probably something here that others can learn from from what Valve is doing. Hopefully, not every game turns into just a bunch of these like loot boxes. But wow, pretty incredible.
I gotta wonder if some of the case opening like frenzy was also people like hoping to either get stuff that's like very exclusive to the early launch, meaning like maybe it gets taken away later or whatever, and like there's never an opportunity again. And this was like the OG CS:GO 2 stuff, basically, or that there's bugs in the loot boxes that they can exploit early on. Right? There might even be some that people caught on to, and it's like, hey, let's open as much as possible before Valve catches on. Could be those kind of situations. I mean, there's a lot of possible factors there, but I got to imagine like people are trying to take advantage of the situation in some way or another, or think they're going to really be doing that, or they're just really that excited. But I don't know if it generates that much. But I guess, when people hear numbers like that for the case openings and the profit, like you don't have to wonder why Valve doesn't make that many games. Like the amount of money, but it also does make you think like, why don't they try and make more games that use these like case kind of things? And maybe they could be making significantly more money because again, they make the money off the game through the case openings, and then they make the money off the market, which they also own and get transaction fees off of. So it's a very lucrative thing for them to be doing. And how much maintenance have they really had to do on that game over time? Like it's gotta be. I mean, I don't know how much they make too off of like Dota 2. We haven't really even dug into that. That's another one that's just kind of been somewhat coasting for them for a while that they've got to be making good money off of. Team Fortress 2, I think, did okay for them for a while as well, but that's maybe they slowed down a bit. But it's just interesting as their sort of business model with the games that kind of are games as a service that they do very little service on, right? Like it's a weird game because we're used to games as a service is like live ops. Like every week, people got to pump out content, or your game's just going to die. Whereas Valve's just like, no, we're good. We'll put out some new stuff for people to have in cases. We'll put out some new cases. That's going to be like the lowest level effort profit model for like games as a service that anyone is like, everything, just the cost to benefit ratio. It's got to be insane on those. And it's interesting, like because they inherited that game's success from like a modder basically that they picked up. And it's too bad they didn't find a way to monetize like some of the other games they picked up, like Portal, to the same extent. But I mean, you look at the Steam charts for the game right now, like which kind of got like merged Counter-Strike Go 1 and 2, and it's like it's only picked up. Like it definitely did not lose players from dropping that. But I do wonder, and maybe this, Felipe, if they delisted CS:GO 1 because of the sort of fragmentation they got when they first launched CS:GO. It took a while to really catch on because you had people stuck on 1.6 and on Source. And I know there's some other ones, like Nexon has their weird Counter-Strike, and there are some other ones, but generally people, like a lot of people stuck on CS 1.6. And I imagine they were like, we can't have people dragging into this new economy. We need everyone in this one game. I mean, do you think that was a big factor in it?
Definitely. I think that was like kind of the learnings that they got in the past, and that they tried to prevent that happening again with this new one. So I completely think that was the reason.
It seems kind of risky though when you're like, I know they didn't change the game a huge amount, but definitely the competitive scene. Like, I mean, you mentioned the actual events that got kind of screwed up by that. Like, hopefully they worked something out with Valve where they could maybe host an old like build or something locally. But it's a situation where you're also changing some important dynamics. The smoke stuff you mentioned, like maybe doesn't sound like a huge thing, but anyone who's watched CS:GO competitive, smokes are a huge part of the game, right? They drive a lot of the gameplay in the early and mid game in terms of like who moves where and like a lot of the dynamics of it. And all of a sudden you could punch holes in that, and the way it billows is different. And like it's going to be a pretty big deal. I mean, I haven't seen like CS:GO 2 competitive esports, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that impacts those. But then you also got the level design changes. I mean, this is a game that's infamous for having one map pretty much dominate the game for years with DE Dust, right? Where like people don't seem to like change too much in this game. They like to really refine one map. And so you take out some of those community maps and some of the other maps, you revise the classic maps, change it's cool for seeing a meta shift, but if I know anything about pro players, they hate change. They hate having to like learn something new, having to work at it again. The audience loves it, right? But the pro players, I gotta imagine, are like really not happy about having to like this forced transition into like new things they have to learn. But again, this is, as I mentioned earlier, this is like Valve is kind of a little more hands off with the competitive scene, so they can just kind of be like, well, sorry, like they're not the ones running most of these tournaments. So I kind of wonder if that dynamic is a little more okay with them because of that situation.
But I agree, but I would say also that that they have been like kind of doing an A/B test, right? Like they had like open a beta for small percentage of the population that they were only being able to play CS2, or probably these were able to play both CS2 and CS:GO, while there were other people that were kept playing only CS:GO. So I guess that they understood, and that's why, like, although we see risky to do this thing this way and rush it in such manner, they probably saw that the engagement with CS2 was high enough, or even better, and that's why probably they did this rollout this way and like at this time, right? So probably we need to think, to believe that they are really smart people there, because they, for sure they are, and they have analyzed all these details. So probably they analyzed like, okay, what is highly engaged players, what are tournament players, like what's the behavior, are they sticking to CS:GO while we opened CS2, or are they playing more on CS2? And probably they saw that that was like really working for them.
I mean, obviously they have a ton of analytics, right? Owning the whole platform that it runs on and everything like that. Plus, like, explain that the amount of data from the game sounds like it's a lot more. So they should be able to, to do a lot of data mining, I would imagine. I also wonder, like, the big question I have is, so like, CSGO is also kind of infamous for cheating, right? Like, not necessarily because Valve does a poor job at it, but because cheaters are very incentivized, or like the cheat developers, right? To continually sort of win that arms race as much as possible. I do wonder if like the engine change and the technology shift has any advantage against cheaters. Like, if, like, at the very least, if this disrupts them for a while, because like the engine being different, maybe the cheats they're using don't work anymore. They have to scramble to fix that. If this could be a big advantage for players like looking to avoid cheaters, like, because that could be a pretty big deal for a game that tends to deal with that a lot. Like a lot of people, especially, just with the game being like free to play, like you can create account after account, stuff like that. You have this, they try to deal with the status systems, and it seems like a complicated problem to solve. But I mean, you can't just engine change, right, all the time to kick out cheaters. But I do wonder if this could be a significant advantage, and maybe even a factor in why they forced the switch, just to possibly like shove everyone into a new space and force the cheat developers to catch up. I mean, if I remember correctly, too, Valve's been known to like sue cheat developers and things like that, and like try and deal with that as much as possible or stop that. But I mean, that's one of those battles you can't always win. But yeah, really look forward to seeing how this goes. Like, this is kind of early, I think, to get metrics on it, but I think it'll be for the whole industry to see like whether or not this is a good thing or bad thing for a company that's been very successful for a long time, and a game that's been, we're talking about esports dying. Like, this is the oldest esports game that's still active, right? At this point, basically. I mean, if you consider it, from 1.6 or whatever onwards as one game, like, this is, because I don't think many people are playing StarCraft 2 competitively so much anymore. So I'd say this is probably one of the longest running. So it's kind of funny that we're talking about all the newer ones, falling apart, and the oldest ones like, hey, no, we're just releasing a new version. We're still going strong, and we're still the top game on Steam, with like 1 billion players almost active at any one time. It's, I don't know, it's, and the amount of money being made. So I don't know. Hopefully some lessons can be learned for these other esports games from this in some way or another. But Valve does kind of keep a lot of stuff kind of tight to the chest. So we wanted to also end things here on kind of a fun note. We got a little trivia from Aaron here. He's got some questions. We're going to see how quick we are on the draw, I think, me and Felipe.
Yeah, I have no idea how this is going to go. But, it's a light news week. We try things out. Let us know what you think. But I got a trivia showdown for Felipe and Devin here. It's a bit smaller group than we were aiming for. But, it'll be a one-on-one battle. And we'll see who the ultimate victor is. But here's how it's going to work. I have 10 questions that I'll run through. They're all about the business of gaming. I'll ask the question, and I'll give you 10 or so seconds to type your answer into the chat that we have. And then when I say go, hit enter so that the message goes through. And we can see what everyone says. It is a competition, of course, but feel free to keep it lively and active if you want to discuss options or try to sabotage each other's answers. And that short 10-second spans that I'm going to give or so. For every answer you get right, you'll get a point, or some of them, whoever's closest will get the point. And at the end, we'll see who has the most right answers. And of course, the winner wins eternal Naavik Gaming Podcast glory. So the reward is definitely worth competing for. And for everyone listening play along. Why not? Let us know what you think. But also, if you outscore any of these fine fellows or underscore, let us know. Send me an email or send us an email at podcast@navic.co or hit us up on Twitter with hashtag I beat Devin or something like that if you want to flaunt your victory.
Thanks.
Or a hashtag I lost to Devin if Devin comes in clutch today. We will see. But let's go ahead and kick it off. I hope you guys have the chat open. First question number 1. According to Circana, what is the best-selling console PC game of 2023? You guys have 10 seconds. There's some big options out there. No Googling. Googling is cheating in this example. If you don't get it right, we'll go with maybe a second round. But you guys have your... Do you have your answers locked in?
Yeah.
All right. Hit enter. Go. Nope, you were both wrong. So Devin said Zelda, Felipe said Baldur's Gate 3. I'll give you 5 more seconds to give one more guess. And if not, I'll go with whoever was closest. 5, 4, 3, 2.
It's a hard one. There was some big ones.
Enter. Nope, not Starfield God of War. The answer is Hogwarts Legacy.
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
Yep, that's the best-selling game of 2023. Kind of a.
Wow.
I mean, the Harry Potter Wizarding World IP has been very underutilized for years, and so it's
also there's been some bad Harry Potter games too. It seems like.
So it's living its moment. But number 2 is Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom, and so I'll go ahead and give Devin
close points.
That point
half
there.
A point. I was feeling that one because that's a one platform,
like half a point sounds good for this one. You get half a point for that, Devin. Question number 2.
I'll take it.
According to data.ai, what was the number 1 grossing game on mobile yesterday? I mean, we all know what the biggest mobile games are. So it wouldn't shock me if someone got this right, at least on number 2. But let's lock it in, hit enter in 3, 2, 1, go. It's not Genshin or Candy Crush, guys. You got this. I'll give you one more shot. Let me see if I can give a hint. It's a relatively new game. It's not one of these classics of many years. Let's give it one more shot in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Monster Hunter. No,
yes,
nope, it is not Monster Hunter.
So topical.
It's a new one.
Yeah.
The answer, Devin, you're not going to put in a number 2.
I don't know, man. Like,
that's fine. The answer is Monopoly Go.
Really?
Yeah.
I would not have expected that.
Yeah. And then Royal Match is actually number 2. And then Candy Crush. So new games are starting to take over the tops of the charts, but there you go. No one gets points on that one. Feel free to teamwork with each other if you need for some of these.
I don't think either of us would have dug up Monopoly Go out of or Monopoly Now.
So the next 2 might be a bit harder, and so I'm actually gonna maybe whoever is the closest on this one will win. Out of all of the gaming companies that are over a $500 million market cap, so basically just all of the big gaming companies, what is the best performer on the stock market over the past 3 years? I'll give a hint. They don't make games. All right, I'll let you guys give a shot here. You look puzzled.
You really threw us off with that one, man. Like they don't make games.
All right. Well, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. No, it's not Roblox. That's a good guess. They haven't even been public 3 years though. Devin, do you have a guess?
I mean, Unity?
No, I don't think they've been public 3 years either.
No.
I'll give one more shot to you guys. Think
Does it come
about
with a
the
hint?
memes.
Yeah.
Think about the memes. No, it's not Facebook. Devin, you got this. I believe in you.
The memes,
I know
man,
you
what?
know this.
I probably do too, and I'll feel stupid the minute you say what the answer is.
All right. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and say the answer.
Just bust it out.
The answer is GameStop. GameStop is the best performing like games industry company of the past 3
you were
years.
counting retail? Come on now.
Well, I told you they don't make games.
But you know what? Yeah, I see the memes now. That much is obvious. That movie just came out too, by the way. I don't know if any of you guys have seen it on the like Dumb Money on the whole like Reddit GameStop thing. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm kind of looking forward to it. It looks fun.
The Good ultimate meme stock, is GameStop. But if you guys answered Sega, which is the next one, I would have given that. But I wasn't expecting anyone to get that one.
I'm kind of surprised Sega, too. Like, I mean, I feel like they've kind of spread out their stuff, but I guess they're doing pretty good, like picking stuff up.
They've been on a quiet roll.
I mean,
all right.
on arcades.
Yeah.
So the next one, the next question. Feel free to teamwork, however you guys need on this. Is the flip side. Out of all of these large companies, what is the worst performer? All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Zynga?
Facebook. Is that your answer? Facebook?
I said I hope Facebook.
No, it's not. It's not Facebook. Facebook's like more than doubled in the past.
And I know they should be punished for their spending, but they're not. So,
but
do you have a guess, Felipe?
Well, I was thinking Unity, but you said like it hasn't been public for so long. But like, I think like they have really like lost like a lot since they do the IPO.
They have lost a lot. I don't think they've been public. They haven't been public 3 years. Embracer is close. Is close.
Really? Okay.
It's close. I'll give you guys one more shot. Think close to Embracer. What could it be? Whoever says it first wins the point.
It's on the tip of my brain too. Don't want to think of the name.
Stillfront. Felipe, you got it. There you go.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, because if you think back, 3 years ago was like the peak COVID heights. Right. Everyone was bought in on the M&A strategy. And it's unraveled.
Yeah,
for
before
a lot
Embracer
of
like took over the podcast, Stillfront was the other one. So I just couldn't remember the name off. Good job, Felipe.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, there you go. So number 5, currently Take-Two Zynga is the largest gaming deal of all time. And if Activision Microsoft goes through, that'll be the next one. What is the largest deal after those? So the third largest gaming deal of all time. It's not Bungie. No, it's not ZeniMax. Whoever gets it next, whoever gets it first wins. It's not King. It's not. These are all close.
Acquisition? No, what was it? I feel like it's a big company buying a mobile company, though. Like, I feel like that's got to be it.
It is. Big mobile acquisition.
Who else was it?
It's been a while. I'll give that hint too. You guys got this. It's not Peak. I don't think Peak's been acquired yet.
Trying to think of the other ones before that.
I'll give 5 more seconds before I'll just say it. 5, 4, 3, 2, last chance. 1. The answer is Tencent acquiring Supercell. They acquired 80% for, it was like 8.6 billion, I want to say. So it valued Supercell at like 10 billion at the time. That was 2016. So it's been a while since that one happened. But yeah, big deal. All right.
How was that compared to like the Riot pickup from Tencent?
Riot was pretty small comparatively, I think. I can actually maybe look it up right now. Riot acquisition.
I'm just curious, like for comparison, right? Because you got like mobile games and then like someone who's got this giant ecosystem around one game somehow being much cheaper.
I'm not 100% sure. I might have to dig. So they didn't buy 100% of Riot, but I think they bought a majority stake for 400 million at the time.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know you're counting majority stakes, but you know.
Yeah, well.
At some point, it feels like we'll be counting Ubisoft under their acquisitions the way things are going too.
So no one got that one. This isn't looking great so far. Felipe, I have a point for you, and Devin, I have half a point for you. So listeners out there, I'm sure there's one of you feeling really good right now, getting your hashtags ready. But let's go to number 6. In the first half of 2023, which venture capital firm invested the most money into games startups? All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Yep, you both got it right.
Okay, I was going to say my second answer was Animoca Brands.
Animoca Brands is they're not.
They've just been throwing money around.
Yeah, I don't think they would be considered like in the same category per se, but I guess they're pretty high.
I'd say A16Z still ranks like at this point as well, not just the beginning. It seems like.
Yeah, Bitcraft was pretty close at number 2.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking as well.
And Makers was number 3 for the first half of 2023. If anyone was wondering, getting ready for future trivia rounds. All right, how about this one? And this one is who gets the closest wins. What did you say, Felipe?
That we split the point because we both guessed. Or
I'll just give you both the full point. Why not?
Nice.
Enjoy your point. All right, so next one, whoever gets closest wins. As of the latest quarter, how many average daily active users does Roblox have? It's a big number. I'll let you
I'm just going to put my first guess. It's probably wrong, but let's throw it out there.
Probably both of them are wrong.
Probably
okay.
Way too low.
So Devin, you guessed 15 million. Felipe, you guessed 300 million. The answer is 65.5 million. So Devin, you are closest. It's a
Price
big number.
Right rules.
When you're
MAU. Sorry,
MAU. Yeah, that makes sense. You made me really think my answer was way too small, Felipe. I'm like, crap, 300 million. I hope it's not that. It's crazy. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. They are multi-platform as well. Got to keep that in mind. And now they're going to be on Quest, or on Quest already.
All right, so it's getting close. Devin has 2.5 points. Felipe, you have 2 points. So question number 8. What are the top 3 best-selling video game franchises in history in terms of units sold? So I'll let you put in your 3 guesses. Put them in like back to back, like your grouping of 3 guesses, and whoever has the most right out of the 3, it gets the point. So I'll let you think about it for 5 to 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's see what you got. All right, Devin, you guessed GTA, Final Fantasy, and Mario. Mario is in that list. And Felipe, Pokemon, Mario, Harry Potter. Pokemon is also in that list.
I wasn't sure if we could put Mario, because Mario's like in like 50 million different franchises, so I wasn't sure if that was a valid answer.
It is valid. I think
cool.
I think Mario is number 1. Let me see if I can pull it up. Mario is number 1 with 832 million units sold.
Wow.
Tetris is number 2 with 495 million, and then Pokemon is
that
number
counting
3.
like all the weird like spin-offs that they did as well, I assume?
I'm not positive. I actually don't know.
Weird ones.
Most of it, almost all of that is just like the mobile game paid downloads. I think I don't even think these are all the variants. It's just Tetris was very popular. So Felipe, you win the point. And for those interested, Call of Duty is number 4, GTA is number 5, FIFA is number 6.
I forgot about Call of Duty. Dang, should have thought.
Yeah.
That.
So those are.
I feel like GTA was just pulled up by GTA 5. Like on that one.
Well, the tables are turning. It's now Felipe with 3, Devin 2.5.
Well, that's because GTA 6 hasn't come out yet. That's not my fault.
There you go. You should have thought that through. So number 9, including handheld, hybrids, and home systems, what is the best-selling video game console of all time? I'll give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go.
I'm totally wrong, but I just to answer something.
You're both wrong. It's not the Switch, and it's not the PlayStation.
I bet it's the original Game Boy.
1. So let me see if I can pull this up. So the Switch is number 3 And the PlayStation 1 is, I don't even know where it is on the list. It's not,
Okay.
it's number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's number 6. So there's
It's hard because I want to guess older ones, but I don't think people bought as many units back then, right? So it's hard to like go off of time for that one. It's tricky.
Yeah, so I'll give you one more guess. And whoever gets it right or closest wins. So again, this is handheld, hybrid, or like full home console.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Devin, it is the Atari, the Atari Jaguar.
Obviously, that was definitely.
All right, so
or the
5,
Lynx, maybe
4, 3, 2, 1, go. Let's see what you got. So Felipe said PS3. Devin said the Nintendo 64. So
I think
the winner,
I'm pretty off with that one.
The winner is still Devin with the Switch at number 3. So I'll give you a half point for that. You didn't quite nail it. Number 2 is the Nintendo DS, actually, which sold 154 million. Number 1 is the PS2.
I thought about putting the DS, but is that counting like the different versions of the DS, or is that just the straight original DS?
That's just the straight original DS.
Okay.
Not the 3DS.
Right, because there was like DS Lite, there was all these other like DS versions, so I just want to make sure.
So yeah, number 1 was
I was going to go with Virtual Boy, but
And PS2 and Nintendo DS are pretty neck and neck as number 1. And the Switch isn't done yet, so I don't know if it'll get to surpassing those. So the others are at like 154, 155 million. Nintendo Switch is at about 130. So I don't know if it'll get to the number 1 spot, but
maybe once that Super Mario Wonder comes out.
I know, they got to get selling quickly before Switch 2 comes out if they want to top the charts. So Devin, I'm going to give you a half point for that. And you know what that means. You both are tied at 3-3 with one final question left. And the final question for you all is, again, whoever is the closest wins.
All right.
And so, let's see. Devin, actually, let me ask the question first. At the time of recording, how many published episodes of the Naavik Gaming podcast are there? And I think for reference, Devin, you can confirm. I think this is our 116th Roundtable episode. So you have that information to work with.
Right. Which shows are we counting here? Are we counting all the interviews?
Every episode.
We're counting everything? Every
episode that we've had.
Okay.
I'll give you a few seconds to think about it before you drop it into the chat. But this is the tiebreaker. Who is the biggest Naavik Gaming podcast fan of the panel? I didn't know the answer. I had to look it up myself to come up with it. So don't feel bad either way. But 5, 4, 3, 2.
But what's the question? Sorry, what's the question?
How many episodes of the Naavik Gaming podcast have been published as of the time of recording? So not including this episode. All right, let's see it at 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. Felipe, I just told you that we're on number 116 of just this segment.
He thought you said MAU.
I was understanding the question. So that's what I asked because I wasn't understanding it.
Watch him still be closer than me.
I'll let you give one more guess so that you fully understand. So again, how many episodes of this podcast are there? With the information that we're on 116 of this one segment.
Okay.
So, yeah. I'll let you throw one more guess in. Basically, is it over or under 265?
Yeah, I'm sticking with mine. I feel confident about that one being close enough. I mean, if Felipe goes 264, I'm going to be upset.
Okay.
Price is Right
style. It's higher.
You're going to go higher?
Yeah.
Good.
So drum roll, please. There are, of the Naavik Gaming podcast, 245 episodes.
Oh, so close.
So
I
Devin,
actually 250 and I revised it up too.
So Devin, you clutched it out with this win of the inaugural Naavik Gaming podcast trivia showdown. I hope you can fully bask in its glory.
We got to do more of the who's the closest ones. That's apparently my best game.
Yeah, we should do more of that. I probably had some that were too difficult
I can't get the right answer, but I can always get close to it, right? That's all my half points.
So anyways, some good learnings from doing this run through. But anyways, thanks for bearing with me as we gave that a shot. Hope that was a fun way to.
It's a lot of episodes, though. That's for sure. Like that's pretty good.
Well, there you go. That's all you got for me, Devin.
Cool. Well, like good times. Hope you at the listener at home or wherever you are got a few of those as well. Definitely fun. I will have to do that again sometime. Hopefully with some more contestants for me to beat with those. Who's the closest? But yeah, thanks for that, Aaron. Cool. Well, thanks, of course, to both of you for joining. And of course, the listener as well. Thanks for listening. Hopefully to all 240 something episodes. We got to get up to 300 now. We got a new goal. So we're just going to have to crank out a whole bunch more interviews and crypto corners on the side with these. So make sure you're listening to those as well. If you're a Roundtable listener and aren't aware that we also have other great shows, make sure you're listening to those. As Aaron mentioned, he's got a great interview coming up. We've got a lot of interviews we've been putting out with some great content, different format than this, obviously. So, and of course, again, I like to repeat this every time because, people discover this and don't know. You make sure you're going to navic.co and subscribing to the Navic Digest. Great content. We're continuing to ramp up that content and quality, all kinds of good insights, data, all kinds of awesome stuff. So make sure you're checking that out. Even if you don't read all of them, at least subscribe so you can catch the ones that are of your interest. But again, thanks everyone. Make sure also that you hit us up at our email if you've got any feedback, comments, questions. You want to brag about your score privately as not on social media? It's fine as well. It's podcast@navic.co. Again, just for those who aren't familiar, it's Navic spelled 2 A's. So it's NAAVIK.co. So make sure to hit us up. We always love to get some good feedback. But in the meantime, enjoy your weekend. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you guys next week.
If you enjoyed today's episode, whether on YouTube or your favorite podcast app, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, or give a 5-star review. And if you want to reach out or provide feedback, shoot us a note at podcast@navic.co or find us on Twitter and LinkedIn. Plus, if you want to learn more about what Navic has to offer, make sure to check out our website, www.navic.co. There, you can sign up for the #1 games industry newsletter, Navic Digest, or contact us to learn about our wide-ranging consulting and advisory services. Again, that is www.navic.co. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.